Thank you. That might have been the best introduction ever. I'm lucky to speak at quite a few different conferences, and this is standing out as the best. Thank you. Whew. Yay, I am so happy. Well, like I said, I speak at a lot of different conferences, and it's so awesome to be able to be like, wake up in the morning and be like, going to my next conference. That's 4 blocks away from where I live. So yay, Toronto. So happy to be here and live here. Originally from California, and I moved up here last year. So it's really awesome to be here at this conference. So I like to share, I know Twitter's not like the big thing anymore, but I love Twitter, and this is where I'll be sharing the slides afterwards. I'll put in the Slack and other places. But my mistake, I have the Lime Daring Twitter account. A lot of people think it's Lime Darling, which I also own, and you can see on the right there. And I just think this is hilarious. So FYI, if you want to follow me on Twitter and you want to get the slides afterwards, because I have a lot of suggestions and different resources I wanted to recommend, it's the Lime Daring account, not the Lime Darling account. So you build something. How do you get folks to see it? This is my life. I basically spend my time. I don't have a real job. I build things, and I try to get people to see them and try to get people to buy them, like my books. Hello Web App. I run the Hello Web Books website that sells my books. I also run a website called Wedding Lovely. And this is my world. It's just trying to build things, which I love, and then do the hard part of getting people to see it. So this session is for people out there who also have the skills to build something, and then are jumping into that daunting, oh crap, how do I get people to see it? For designers and developers, marketing is hard. Marketing takes a lot of mental energy. A lot of us are introverts. We're much more comfortable working on the code, working on the computer, working on the design, building something, making it perfect, but the mental energy of taking it to someone and potentially get bad feedback, or getting people being like, I hate this, or I love this. Like, that whole game can be exhausting. And it's easy to avoid. A lot of people just build something and launch it, and then hope it goes viral, and then nothing happens. Because things don't really, you have to put effort into something to get it seen and be used, even if you've built something that's super awesome. Sorry, I hear a little like bump, bump noise. I hope that's not me with my microphone. But marketing is worth it. The feeling that you get if you build something and someone uses it, like when I built Wedding Lovely, and I've been running this website for the last 8 years, and that feeling, what is that? Is that me? Sorry, it's going to keep bugging me, so I'm going to try to fix this. Is it something that I'm hitting? Okay.
Might be the earrings, but
oh, okay.
Try that. There, try
Pull
that.
the earring off. Maybe that'll help. Sorry about that, guys. All right, marketing. The feeling you get when you launch something and it goes into someone's hand, that person comes to you and is like, yeah, what you built changed my life. What you've built is helping my business, is helping me launch my own thing. Getting that feedback from other people, that is totally worth it. It's such a good feeling. So like I said, I've run these are my 2 main projects. Wedding Lovely is my startup that I started 8 years ago that I did fundraising for, and now I have a little team working under me. It's a wedding planning app and wedding vendor marketplace. And then I also build, Jesus, this is not working out, is it? Podium mic. There we go. Hello, there we go. Yeah, Podium mic it is. And then Hello Web Books is my book. I wouldn't call it publishing because I'm self-publishing, but that's the other project that I run. So how do we market what we build? How do you get what you built into the hands of other people without, say, selling your soul or turning into one of those smarmy marketers? You know who I'm talking about. You don't want to turn into that. So here are some really practical steps to help you take what you've built, get it in people's hands. So the first step, this is not really marketing per se. This is like way before any of this, like trying to set up a mailing list or any of these other things happen. The very first thing you do when it comes to marketing is to understand your customer, especially if the customer is not you. For example, Wedding Lovely. It sounds like kind of a weird cliche. I'm a lady. I launched a website for weddings. spoiler, I actually really do not like weddings. I launched Wedding Lovely so I could change the wedding industry because I think the whole process of wedding planning is awful and broken, and it's turned this event centered around love into something that's a little more corporate. I can go on for ages about this. So the funny thing about running Wedding Lovely is I still have to stay abreast of what's going on in wedding trends. I also have to understand that a lot of people love that process of wedding planning. And I have my own feelings about weddings, but the Wedding Lovely customer isn't me. But I have to stay abreast of what's going on, understand the customer that I'm targeting. So this is one of the things that I do is I follow wedding blogs. And again, not really my favorite thing to read, but it's important for me to understand that customer. I see what's going on in the wedding industry, what people are talking about, what people are recommending, what the new trends are, and so I can continue to understand that customer because I'm not building something for myself. If you build something for yourself, say you're building something that fulfills a need, it's a lot easier to market your project because you're that customer. But there's a lot of people out there who see a need in a different field, and you have to spend the time understanding the customer and making sure that what you're building, if you see that need in a different field and your customer is not yourself, you might not be seeing a need that doesn't actually exist. And you might have heard about startups, the constant startups who fail, the law of postmortems will say that they built a product that people didn't want. And this is step one to knowing that you're building a product that people need, is to understand the customer. So how do you understand a customer before you've built your project? Number one, talk to customers. Go to trade shows, go to events and meetups, join forums, Slack, subreddits, follow industry leaders on social media. Try to stay involved in the conversation, that area they're jumping into. I met someone who was a developer building something for the auto industry. So I meant a lot of traveling to auto shows and talking to people on the ground floor and making sure that what they're building was something that the auto industry actually needed. Don't make assumptions. Don't make assumption that because you're a developer and that you know that you can totally make this process way better and that they'll totally need it. Don't make the assumption that they will use what you built. Like, talk to people, run it by them, and see if you're missing anything. And don't forget to add analytics. Again, not really like getting your product into the customer hands, but this is the thing that's going to help you determine whether what you're doing is actually working. So, of course, Google Analytics is the big one, and you should add analytics as early as possible. Whatever landing page, whatever you do, have analytics. So you can see what's going on and learn a little bit about the terms around analytics, like the bounce rate, the number of people that hit your website immediately. If that number is high, you might have a problem with your design. You might have to go and revise it. So Google Analytics, but Google Analytics can be, there's a lot of other things other than Google Analytics. So taking a step back, instead of installing Google Analytics on its own, I actually recommend to install a thing called Segment. So instead of the little snippet for Google Analytics, and then you decide later on to do Kissmetrics or Mixpanel or any of the other analytics services that are out there, there's a billion, you can install the Segment.io tracking code instead. And then in Segment, you can say, hey, share my data with all these other services in one snippet rather than constantly installing new things. Ooh, music. All right, then FYI, this one is a little bit of a disclaimer. This is a project that my husband built, and he built it because both him and I build and launch things and try to launch it. And Brief Metrics is just our way of trying to take Google Analytics noise and cut it down into one email on Monday that says, here's how you're doing. Here's your traffic. Here's how it went versus the previous week versus the month. Here's your bounce rate. All these little pieces of data in an email on Monday. So again, I'm biased. My husband built this. We built it for our projects. But FYI, if you want to, if you're overwhelmed by analytics, if you're overwhelmed by Google Analytics and the billion different pages that it has and things to click through, we built Brief Metrics to help people understand their data. And the next step when it comes to building a project, say you have an idea for something you want to build, and you immediately just jump into code or design. take a step back, stop working on the code, and try to set up a landing page and start building an email list. This is a way that if you come to a conference like this and you have this thing that you're building, you talk to someone and they're like, oh, what are you working on? And you're like, oh yeah, I'm working on so-and-so. And that person's like, wow, that's awesome. I would love to use that. Let me know when you launch. If you don't have a landing page and you don't have a way of grabbing their email list, it's like likely that the person is just going to disappear off in the ether. And then later on when you're launching, you're like, oh yeah, there was that person. Who was it? Do I need to send that email to them to let them know that this perfect product for them launched, and maybe they'll pay? You want to have a place to collect emails as early as possible so you can get that interest. You can keep those people in a place, collect people into the email list as you build your product, as you meet people, so then you can send notification out when you launch, and you already have a group of customers that are interested in your product. There's a lot of different services that help you build and maintain your email list. I know that there was another session earlier today, I believe, that talked about email lists. Totally awesome. There's Drip, there's Convertkit, there's MailChimp, there's Campaign Monitor. There's 1.5 billion different services out there to help you. They give you a tracking code, put on your website. That'll help you grab those emails. It immediately goes into your email list, and then you can send out campaigns. They're really simple to set up. Shouldn't take more than a couple hours, and then boom, you have something to show people, at least get their emails while you're still building your product. Now, if you're not really skilled with web design, the whole aspect of having a website up for your product when your product is not done, whatever you're building, your book, your open source project, whatever, having a page up to share might be really intimidating. You don't want to work on the design. You don't have to think about branding. You don't want to think about a place to host the website, which is why I like GitHub Pages. They're really easy to set up, really easy to set up a very basic website and then put those tracking codes. And then you can even go farther into I don't want to build something myself just yet, and go use a service like LaunchRock, where you just sign up for LaunchRock, and you put your name of your service in, and then boom, you have a landing page. There's a lot of services that make this step really easy, so you have a place to sign people up for your email list. Another one that just launched, I think, a week ago, is Ship by Product Hunt. I believe they're doing something very similar to LaunchRock, where you say, hey, I'm going to build this product, and Product Hunt now has a service to help you build a landing page and get an email list and start getting interest in the product you're building. So that's very good. Product Hunt to set up. Main thing here is once you have an email list, and I'll tell you I am actually terrible at doing this myself. I have to constantly remind myself that you have an email list, you need to keep it active. You need to make sure that the people don't forget that you exist. Sending them a monthly update saying, hey, thanks for signing up for my email list. Here's the current progress of what's happening, what's going on right now. Here's what I've done in the last month. That will keep your email list active, and it will prevent, say if you left it to go stale, and then a year later you're like, oh, hey, remember me? You signed up a year ago. Here's my product. People are like, huh? Who are you? And then they unsubscribe. Keep your mailing list active. Don't let it go stale. You can set up automated messages, so you don't have to remember to do a bunch of emails. I do this in MailChimp, where you can say, hey, after a person signs up for the email list, send them a message 1 week afterwards, 1 month afterwards, 6 months afterwards, something small and easy. And that way that I can both do my update emails, which again, I'm bad at, and I'm smacking myself in the head, because every time I give this presentation, I'm like, oh yeah, I need to do that. But it also, you can set up those monthly emails, but then also set up your automation so the list stays as active as possible. And there's also Convertkit. That's one of the services for emails that I mentioned before. They are really into the automation stuff, and they're probably the best one for helping you set up those automated emails to make it super simple. So all you have to do is set up once and then just go back to development and design. You don't have to worry about doing that ongoing marketing as you're developing your product. And then, big one. When you're developing a product, something you want to launch as early as possible. And it's really hard to do when you're building something you want people to use, because it's really scary when people actually start using it. There's a quite a few different reasons I talk to people, reasons that people give me when I talk to them, when they say, oh yeah, I haven't launched because, there's this other feature, and if I add that one feature, my product will be way better. And then they finish that feature, and they're like, wait, what about that other feature? Oh, that'll make my product even better. And then, oh, that other feature. Years go by, the product still hasn't launched. It's tempting to continue to add features. It's kind of like this weird procrastination preventing you from launching. In the audience, you might have heard about the whole minimum viable product, not theory, but minimum viable product idea, where instead of adding features, and you have this idea of a full-fledged product, my full-fledged product has to have this feature and this feature and this feature and this feature, and you're just working to build that car. Instead of starting from, a wheel and making something useless and adding another feature and it's still useless until you get to that magical car moment, instead try to build something a lot smaller but still useful. Build your skateboard, and then your scooter, and then your motorcycle, and then you'll eventually get to your car. My own personal experience with this, Wedding Lovely, when I first launched it, I actually used it to teach myself how to code. So the code in the back end was awful. The front end, I launched it 6 weeks from the day I decided to pick up coding. 6 weeks later, I launched my first product, and this is what actually turned into Wedding Lovely. And that first website was just a landing page, a place for people to sign up for a vendor account, like a form that went into an admin, and then I could approve it, and it would just give them a profile page. There was no advanced search. There was just one page that listed every profile that was on that service. And this service was a way to find wedding invitation designers. And let me tell you, it's weird to build a marketplace and launch it with only, say, 10 designers, which is what I did. It is a useless marketplace. If you were in California looking for a designer my service, there would be probably no options near you. There's no reason to use my website. It was absolutely useless. But it was up, and I was able to go to vendors and get them to sign up on something that was online. And the best part about launching so early for me, I totally ran into this by accident, as I was in New York, and I ran into a design blogger called Swiss Miss, and she said, what are you working on? And I was like, oh yeah, I just launched this website to teach myself how to code. It's called Wedding Invite Love. And she's like, cool. And I walked away, and 4 hours later, my phone blew up because she blogged about my website. It was live. Again, it was useless for an invitation designer network service. There's only 10 designers on it, so anyone looking for a designer wouldn't help them. But it was up. It's the same thing with the landing page. Something was up that someone could share, and then that's what actually launched my startup. Launching as early as possible was something that really helped my own personal startup. Another thing that prevents people from launching is the fear of judgment. It's a fear that someone is going to see what you've built and judge you for it, judge you negatively, tell you that, yeah, I hate what you've built, or it doesn't work for me, or you did something wrong. These things are largely irrational. I think you know that, but it also is something that happens in your brain when you're worried about launching. The thing with judgment, the fear of judgment, something that reassures me when I launch one of my products is that I'm actually small beans and that no one's going to see what I build until I tell people about it. Like, there's no way I'm going to launch something and someone random on the internet, as I am right now, even though I've launched a bunch of products already, people aren't going to come up to me and be like, that's awful. It's just that fear in my mind telling me that someone might do that, and I have to squash it and launch anyways. So, for someone who is like Vitaly Friedman in the last session, launching a new product for him is definitely really scary because he has such a large following. But for small beans people, when launching a product, I tell myself I can't even worry about judgment, worry about people judging me, because probably no one's going to see it anyways until I market it. And then the most important thing I try to tell people for launching the product is that you're going to think about your product differently after you launch it, because customers are going to use it, customers are going to tell you what they actually need. So when you're building your product by yourself or with a small team, before launch, you have an idea of how your customers are going to use it. As soon as you give it to customers, I guarantee it, people are going to use your service in a way you didn't expect. They're going to ask for things that you didn't expect. Ask for features that aren't on your upcoming to-do list. You need to get to the launch period as fast as possible, because then you're going to find out what people actually need from your website. And then you can start iterating. And if you don't launch for, say, 4 years, like a friend of mine, then you're losing out on that opportunity to work with real customers and find out actually what people need. All right, moving on to actual marketing tactics. Thanks for holding on to my little spiel in the beginning here. The easiest / hardest, best marketing tactic is writing content. And I think there's another session that was talking about content and how it's such a huge thing right now. And believe me, it is. And I tell you, as a person who's written books, I actually hate writing, but it's such a good way to get, if you're running a startup, if you're building a product, writing content is the best way to get eyes on what you've built. So again, I hate writing, yet pretty much every success I've had as a developer, designer, entrepreneur has been through writing I've done. This is something I wrote 8 years ago. Look how young I looked. This is when before I even taught myself how to code, I decided I wanted to find a co-founder to help me build what I wanted to build. That went viral in Hacker News, and I got hundreds of people emailing me to be a co-founder. Such a weird world. And long story short, that didn't work out. But this is something that launched me personally into the eyes of other people before I started building Wedding Lovely. And then I wrote this posting, which also went on Hacker News, was #1 on Hacker News for a day, which is insane. And that's one of the other things that really launched my startup into the startup that it is today, 8 years later. And I've done blog posts for the Wedding Lovely blog. This is something that actually brings in about $3,000 a month in affiliate revenue, this one blog post. This is a post sorry for the huge header, the cropping went weird. But I do posts for the Hello Web Books blog. I did posts on Medium to talk about my conference talks. These postings are, I'm teaching other people, but this writing I do helps promote the products that I run. It helps bring people into knowing about me and the things that I am building. It tells people about the stuff that I'm doing without spamming them. It's kind of like the Trojan horse of marketing, because we write things like this. People don't look at it as like a banner ad on a website. They'll immediately tune out. You're giving someone something. You're teaching them a little bit about, for this talk, I'm talking about technical writing. But in it, I'm talking about the products I'm working on. And so people know about what I'm building without, having to advertise them. And it's key. When you write these blog posts and these pieces of content, just FYI, make sure to tie these postings into your mailing list. This is where things that you've been setting up for your marketing are starting to work together. So if you write a blog post, you write something about something you've learned or something about your product, you can then send it to your email list and send out a little message. Be like, hey, by the way, I wrote this post. This is a guy, Justin Jackson. He actually wrote a book I'll reference later called Marketing for Developers. Kind of stole it from my presentation here. He does a really good job of this, is that whenever he writes a post, he sends it to his email list with a little personal introduction, and then says, hey, by the way, I wrote this, and then more people will see that post that he wrote. More people will kind of get further into his ecosystem the more they get these postings. It's a really natural way of sharing what he's doing without seeming like one of those smarmy marketers. So yeah, this is what I'm saying. Writing is great for promotion that doesn't look like promotion. You don't want to go around to people and say, hey, I built this thing, try it out, because people just turn off. But if you say, hey, I built this thing and I wrote about something that's going to help you, someone is more likely to read that thing that you've written and learn about that product. Convertkit does this really well. I mean, this is a big thing right now, and there's a lot of companies who are doing it, this whole content marketing as promotion and advertising. Convertkit wrote this post. That's how to convince people to how to convince someone to join your email list. And Convertkit is an email list software. This post works for anyone who's on any software, MailChimp or Drip or whatnot. It's a good article to really show someone how to convince someone to join your email list, the kind of writing and words that you should use. But also really great content and really great marketing for this company, because then they also can say, hey, we also host mailing lists. We're a mailing list software company. And these blog posts, these articles you're writing, are also good for SEO, especially if they're evergreen. It's something that will stay good to read for years to come. So that post I wrote for Wedding Lovely back in the day, that I said that gives us about $3,000 in monthly affiliate revenue, blows my mind every time this happened. It was a complete accident. But here's the SEO graph. As you can see, if you can read the tiny numbers, I wrote it in 2012. And originally, in May, we got 300 page views. In July, 500 page views. Going down to 2015, started getting 8,000 page views. And you can see it just going up. So the writing you can do, if you spend the time doing writing, talking about the things you've learned, things that help your business, help your products, years down the line, they could, still be super relevant. It could lead to the biggest wins of your career. There's promotion that sticks around that isn't ephemeral. So we're designers and developers. And if you're like me, I hate writing and don't want to write. You'd much rather be doing design and development. You could be terrible at writing. I tell you, I'm horrible at writing. In school, it was always my worst subject. I nearly flunked out of my university level grammar classes. And the only thing I can say when it comes to writing is the more you do it, the better you'll get. I promise. Rely on your peers to help you edit and view what you've written, review what you're saying, get feedback. And the funny thing about having your peers work on an article with you, if you say to someone, hey, I wrote this, can you help me review it? And they're like, cool, good job, here it is. And then you release the post. You can go back to them and be like, hey, that post you helped me edit, now live, can you share it on your own social networks? And they're more likely to share it. Kind of a scummy marketing tactic there, but I use it all the time. So you can get help from people, but you can also use that as a way to help promote your posts afterwards. The other thing is, as designers and developers, you probably don't want to spend the time writing because it's taking away from the time you would be spending on development. The thing here is that writing does not have to be long. You don't have to write a 2,000-word medium blog post in order to share something that's interesting to you that could be picked up by other people and therefore help promote what you're building to the right people. It doesn't have to be long. The other thing that helps me write faster in university, one of the best pieces of advice I got throughout my university career was to, when I'm writing, especially technical documents, is to just write without revising. Try to get to the first draft without going back and correcting something. Because when you're writing, if you're like me, I'll write one sentence, my brain goes, ugh, I hate that sentence, and you revise it, and then you're like, oh, maybe that's better, and you revise it again, and 3 hours later, you're done with the first paragraph. So turn that voice off, and just write. And your brain's going to be screaming at you, this is awful, what are you doing? Fix that spelling error, fix that sentence. Get that first draft out, get an introduction, a conclusion, step away, and then come back to it later. And I guarantee it's going to be way better than you thought it was when you're writing it. And then the errors that you had are easy to fix when you go back and revise it, instead of revising as you're writing. It makes the process of writing so much faster. And then the other complaint is, what if you don't have anything original to say? Why would you write about how you learned how to code? Because there's a 3 billion blog posts and articles about that already. Why would you write and just add to that number when there's already so many other blog posts on that topic? The thing is that the key to originality is just to tell your story and guarantee it will be unique. You can write how you picked up coding or how you use popular open source project, even though there's a bunch of other websites articles on that subject, because A, it'll be original just because you wrote it. B, people read more than one article on a subject. More is better. Some article ideas, it kind of applies for anyone who's launching a small project or a book or some kind of personal project. So how you wrote or coded so-and-so. Come to an event like this conference, doing a recap of the conference. Write about your personal story, a funny story from your background. You can write how to use a project or an object, teach someone how to use something you already know how to use. You can take, say, Python requests. You can write, okay, how to use requests with this other project. Tie two things together. You can write about things that are really awesome, that interest you, something cool that you recommend. There's 1.5 billion different things to write about. It is such a great way to start telling your story, get people interested in what you're building, and it's just, again, the number one way of promoting what you're working on without looking like you're promoting something. All right, so we have a mailing list. We have a landing page. We are starting to write content of some sort. And now you have to take all those things and start finding and sharing to the right communities. This is why you write content, because you want to, it's the same thing as trying to promote your project. Now you're just trying to promote your content. But it's way easier to promote content than it is a project. So some communities are relevant to developers. This is Hacker News. Hacker News is a great place if you're writing development-minded articles. The thing is, Hacker News can be immensely frustrating. So here's the flip side. If you can get something onto Hacker News, something you've written that's for other developers, and it gets high in Hacker News, it could be 100,000 page views. It's insane. But Hacker News can be very frustrating because they have a crazy vote detecting ring. They get really peevy if you post an article on Hacker News and the other people, you say, hey, upvote my article. If they detect that you are asking for votes, they'll disappear. My husband wrote this post called Why Aren't We Using SSH for Everything? And it's been on Hacker News like 8 times randomly. We'll go on there and be like, oh my God, your article got posted again. Yay, traffic. And then it'll just disappear because their algorithms will just take it away. And he didn't do anything. It's a very frustrating process. So I wanted to put this up here is that it's a great place if you're writing for other developers. If you write something for other developers, share it with Hacker News. Just don't rely on it because it can be an exercise in frustration. I particularly like Reddit. I share a lot of things I've written onto Reddit. And Reddit has a lot of, the subreddits, like the programming subreddit or startups or one and a billion different subreddits. The thing is that Reddit is very allergic to self-promotion, and a lot of people want to share what they've built, and Reddit does not like it when you share things that you've built, only what other people have built. So they will likely take away your post if they think that you're promoting, if you're self-promoting. Again, super frustrating to me as a maker, and I just want to share things that I've built. But I also understand there's 1 billion people trying to share things they built, and thus the spam. So this post, I wanted to announce the fact that I've written this book, and there's a Learn Programming subreddit, and I want to be like, hey, I wrote a book to help people learn how to program. I think this would be really relevant for your community. If you're doing the same thing, wanted to share something on a community that is self-promotion, what I did here is I messaged the moderators first, and I said, hey, by the way, here's the exact text I'm going to be sharing. Can I have permission to share this without you immediately flagging it and taking it down as self-promotion? And the moderators were like, oh, all right, well, if people flag the post, we're going to take it down immediately because people do not like self-promotion. Again, oh my God. So I put the post up. I got 352 upvotes at the time I took the screenshot, which is actually really high for the subreddit. Did really well. People seemed really enthused about the book that I wrote. Had a lot of great questions. There are still some people who send me messages being like, you're a bot, you're a spammer. Frustrating. It happens to everybody. But FYI, if you want to share on Reddit, try messaging the moderators if you're going to share something that looks like self-promotion like I did. It's a party over there. Rave. All right, Product Hunt. Product Hunt is another, I need to update the screenshot. I think they look different. But if you've built a product, Product Hunt is here to help you promote your product. Really awesome community. It's starting to turn a little hacker newsy where it's best times to submit your product, the best tactics to do so, something we can do a whole conference session on. And, I took the screen out. Essentially with Product Hunt is that, look at some articles. Some people talk about the best way of sharing on Product Hunt that has some really good and easy tips. One of them is to find someone who's an active maker to submit your product for you. And then they'll have more of a following, and then you'll get more views on your product by having someone else submit for you than yourself. So there's a whole slew of ideas and tactics and tips for Product Hunt that are out there. Just FYI, take a look at it. But Product Hunt is a great community for sharing the products and books and everything that you've written. For all these communities, when you're taking that writing you've written about your project and you submit to the community and it gets up there, if there is a comment form, try to drive as many comments into your comment field. The more, if someone says your headline, it says 10 comments, that is vastly more interesting to click on than something that says 0 comments. So with Hacker News or Reddit or whatnot, if someone responds to your posting, being like, that's a great post, immediately respond back, thank you. And then you've doubled the comments, So respond to discussion. Try to bring other people in to start discussion. Try to up that comment count, and your post as a whole will do better. Quickly moving into social media, because you have your postings, you've shared it onto these communities, but you also want to share it onto various social media networks, and there's a billion out there, so how do you know what to do? I use Twitter a lot for my projects. One tactic I use for my books is I have a completely separate Twitter account for my books, because under my personal account, I didn't want to just constantly be talking about my books and maybe turn people off when they might be following me for personal stuff, or if someone's following me for book stuff, turn them off by talking about personal stuff. So I have a divide between my book stuff and my personal account. Occasionally, I will retweet one from the other, and if someone follows both, they'd still only get one thing in their timeline. But someone can follow one or the other or both, and it won't get overwhelming. And it helps me keep a good divide of promoting the books that I've written, but also keeping my personal account more personal. So that's Twitter. Now you can look into Facebook. Facebook pages exist, but Facebook can be really annoying because Facebook wants you to pay. So if you're, have 400 likes on your page and you post something, Facebook will be like, cool, you've been seen by 5 people. Give me $20 and I'll send it to more people. Ugh, so frustrating. Facebook, ugh. So FYI, have a Facebook page. I set up my things to post to Twitter and there's automatically shared to Facebook, knowing that people who've liked my page on Facebook might not see it, but it's automatic. I don't have to worry about it. I can spend more time doing development and design, and it's on Facebook just in case someone sees it. If you are doing a project that has images, absolutely use Instagram and Pinterest, especially Instagram. And Instagram also is really annoying because it's very hard to set up posts. Like Twitter and Facebook, you can set up automatic postings. You can use things like Buffer to send postings to those services and set them up all at once, and then it'll drip them out. So say you can spend a Sunday setting up a bunch of posts, and they'll be dripped out through the week. You can do that for Twitter and Facebook and every other reasonable network, but Instagram makes it really, really hard. You have to use it through your phone, but that is where the traffic is. And if you have a product or doing a service that uses beautiful images, and you use these services and start building a following, this could be where the majority of your traffic comes from. People use Instagram and Pinterest for image-based search, and it's just key for anyone who wants to market something that uses pretty images. And there's a billion others. So basically, whatever you're building, take a look at what social media networks are out there. See if you can set up, say, automatic, whenever you write a blog post, maybe it'll just send to the right networks, just like an automatic, hey, by the way, a new blog post up. Maybe whenever you upload a new image, it'll automatically send over to Pinterest. Set up the social media service that makes sense for you, but don't ignore it, because it could be a place where you can get a lot of page views without a lot of work. Wrapping up. Quick side note about Kickstarter. If you're running a product, this is something I use a lot for my books. I do Kickstarters for my books. It's kind of a way for me to generate interest in what I'm building and also bring in some money in the beginning to help me fund the development of my project. It doesn't have to be a physical product. I'm involved in the Python and Django world, and there's been quite a few different Django digital products and services that have been funded through Kickstarter. For example, this is a tutorial series that raised $13,000. This was schema migrations that actually went into the official code base, which raised 17,000 pounds. So if you're building an open source project, you can use something like Kickstarter to bring in some extra money, generate some marketing interest. It doesn't just have to be a physical product. You can do cold emailing, which can be frustrating. I did this a lot for my directories, where I just emailed different businesses being like, by the way, I have this product you might like. Some guidelines for doing cold emails, and I don't call because I'm an introvert. I hate phones. But I'll do emails. Keep your messages short if you're doing emails. Make it personal. Sound like a human. Don't sound like a robot sending out emails. Give them an obvious benefit. Tell them how it helps their business. Do this manually rather than using a service, because it's really easy to pick out when the services send email on behalf of someone. Like, you just copy-paste it into your Gmail box and send it out, maybe changing a few words. But try not to use one of those automated email services. And then you can use something like Boomerang for Gmail to let you know if the person doesn't respond in a week. So you can be like, hey, by the way, it's been a week. Don't want to bug you, but maybe you can take a look at this. Just be a human. You know what I'm talking about. You get emails like this all the time when someone's like, hey, you haven't responded to me in a week, and it's really obvious as a robot. But if you act like a human, this could be a good way of following up and getting people who are generally too busy to look at what you've sent them. Blogging in general. If you work with small businesses, this is what Wedding Lovely does. Our blog is largely built by the businesses we run. We work with businesses. Businesses have products. They want to share their products, so they give us the content and images. We post them on our blog. They're happy their stuff got posted because, yay, our stuff is live on a different server. Like, someone is promoting our stuff. They share our blog post with their communities, and then we get the traffic and likes and follows. It's kind of this mutual relationship, mutual benefit. So if you're working with other businesses and they have stuff that you can share on your side and turn it into something where you're taking content out the right, sharing their content, getting the traffic and views and likes from them, win, win, win. Highly recommend it. And then marketing tactics might not be worth it. I didn't go into paid advertising because paid advertising is a place where you can lose money really quickly while you're trying to figure out what you're doing. That said, I will occasionally do paid advertising on smaller networks, like, again, Reddit, because Reddit allows you to choose your subreddits you want to advertise on. So, for example, this is the open source subreddit. You can say, just do an ad to just people on that open source Reddit. Allows you to do a lot better targeting, less likely for you to lose money. And then FYI, collaborations with other projects or businesses. If you're building something and a person, like a competitor or someone in a related field, says, ooh, that's awesome, we can promote each other. I'll promote you on my side, you promote me on your side. Let me tell you from experience of 8 years of doing this, it almost always is disappointing. I have stories, I can't get into them. Even Uber, I was supposed to, Wedding Lovely, partner with Uber, and Uber screwed us. That's another story. Ask me later. Just look at the cost benefit of spending a time promoting another business and make sure it's worth it. But FYI, it usually isn't, but it all depends. And then you could promote your businesses by doing conference talks. Some Delphi books. I have books. Final reminders. Look at your headlines and your website and your messaging and make sure that they're exciting and relevant to your reader. I don't go into content on your iShow website, but the left side, introduction to building web apps using Python and Django. That is wordy and annoying and not fun. But learn how to build a web app actually tells the person what the product is doing for the person. So look at your wording on your website. Make sure it's exciting and relevant, because it could be the thing that's preventing people from signing up for what you're building. And then use the marketing tools you set up. Again, something I sometimes forget to do, like with MailChimp and my mailing list. There is no sense spending the time to set up analytics and making sure everything's all tagged properly and making sure you have an email list if you don't actually use them. So set reminders for yourself to keep these things active, especially when you get distracted with design and development. All right, last little bit. I'm going to go through this quickly. Resources for more. Stacking the Bricks. This used to be Unicorn Free as a marketing blog. It's now Stacking the Bricks. Really awesome marketing blog. There's another book called Design for Developers. Not done by me, done by another person, but it's really awesome. A really great community is Indie Hackers. Lots of articles and podcasts from people building products and launching and telling their stories. Great place to learn. If you go on to Hacker News, search for How I. You'll get a lot of really great articles about how people did things. There's forums like Bootstrapped and Reddit. So in conclusion, marketing is super hard. It can be really exhausting, mentally exhausting, but it could be the key to getting what you've built, your open source project, your homepage, your startup, into the right hands. So I hope some of these tips helped. I will send out the slides and recommendations on my Twitter and then through various Slacks. And thank you so much for having me.